This is my canoe. There are many like her, but this one is mine. Hey guys, I just got back from a solo canoe trip on the Turtle River. I posted some videos, people seem to enjoy those, and I've been asked by a couple folks, can I do a gear out video of all the stuff I bring on my trip? So I thought about it. That'd be a very long video, but I think I'm going to do a series. I think I'm going to do a video about canoe trip kitchen, shelters and tents, cutting tools, stuff like that. The first video though is about my most important piece of gear, my canoe. I'm going to talk about the brand and what I like about it, and I'm going to talk about how I outfit this boat, how I portage it, and how I plan out how much I bring on a canoe trip. So guys, full disclaimer here, I'm not trying to tell you what boat you should buy. I'm just going to let you know what I like about this one, why it works for me. In all my videos, that's all I want to do, is just show you what works for me. If you've got a better solution or a better method, go make a video, I'll watch. So this beautiful old girl is a Swift Algonquin 16. She's made of Kevlar, and she's made here in Ontario. A 16-foot boat is a very versatile boat. It's great for tandem and solo paddling. Let's flip her over. So this canoe has a symmetrical design, meaning it's got the same shape forwards and backwards. So when I'm paddling with someone else, that's the bow seat, and this is the stern seat. When I'm paddling solo, I sit back here and paddle backwards. So because this boat has a symmetrical design, I can sit backwards in the bow seat and paddle in the opposite direction. By sitting here, I'm putting my weight closer to the middle of the boat, gives me a better weight distribution. Also being in the middle of the boat gives me more control with sweeping paddle strokes. She's about 47 pounds, and to replace her with a similar boat would cost at least $3,000, maybe $3,500. They have some lighter options. You can easily shave off 10 pounds, but that's going to cost you more. So I've had this boat for over 20 years now, and she's been on countless canoe trips with me. She's a little scraped up, but every scrape tells a story. She has been all over northwestern Ontario and left this particular shade of green on many rocks. So this patch has a good little story. I was on a canoe trip with my wife in Quetico Park, one of our first dates actually. And it was raining that first day, I remember clearly. I was on a portage lifting the canoe by the thwart, and because it was wet, my hands were wet, it slipped right out of my hands, fell down on the only rock around and put a soft spot right here. So the boat held up well, survived that trip, no problem at all, but I wanted to patch it. So fortunately I was traveling in southern Ontario later that month, and so I popped into the Swift dealership and told them what kind of boat I had, what color it was. They gave me a perfect Kevlar patch, color match epoxy. So I went home, put the patch on, did everything right, read the instructions thoroughly, and had a nice green color match patch here that you could hardly notice. After the epoxy cured, I went out to take a look at it, and it was starting to lift around the corners, and I pecked at it a little bit, and the patch came right off, and I couldn't understand why. I went in the house and told my wife and said, you know, I'm really upset, I did everything right, I don't know why the patch came off. She said to me, oh, I waxed your canoe the other day. Could that be why? Yeah. So after that, I just went back out, cleaned it up with some detergent, and went to an automotive section in the hardware store, got a fiberglass patch, and the rest is history. I think it looks great the way it is. So this boat also has some aftermarket skid plates or bang plates. This is made of a felted Kevlar, and you put it on with epoxy, and what it does is it gives you another 1/4 inch or so of hard material in this critical section of the boat, because on any trip you are going to be banging into rocks. No matter how careful you are, eventually you're going to hit some rocks, especially landing on rocky beaches and stuff. So this really helps. And this one's actually almost worn all the way through. This boat has been on a lot of trips. So this boat has a flat yoke. You can get a shaped yoke, which is a lot more comfortable, but even more comfortable than that are these two pads that I have that I can clamp on, bolt on, and they make the boat a lot easier to carry. So really simple design. Just got a couple wing nuts with a piece of aluminum on some bolts that are embedded in some plywood with some padding, and I carry extra wing nuts in my repair kit. So here in Canada, every small pleasure craft like a canoe has to have a number of things. You need 50 feet of floating rope, you need to have a bailer, you need to have a whistle or signaling device, you need to have a life jacket for every person, You have to have an extra paddle, and if you're at night, you need to have a flashlight with you. So I've got this cool little thing right here. It's got 50 feet of floating rope in it. It's got a waterproof pouch, which serves as a bailer, and it's got a little whistle on the buckle. Whether I'm out for an afternoon paddle or a longer serious canoe trip, I always bring that. That way if I ever get stopped, I'm mostly compliant just with that right there. So the other thing I outfit my boat with every time is lots of rope. I bring a length of 30 feet of good thick rope and 20 feet of good thick rope. Together I've got 50 feet. And for the whole trip, I'll tie a coil onto the bow and stern with a bowline. And I know that rope's always there. Sometimes I'll bring bungees to sort of lash it on, or I'll make sure it's kind of short. And when I'm on a portage, I don't even take them off. So on a canoe trip, the most important piece of gear you have is your canoe. You never want to lose your canoe. If you lose your canoe, you're not getting home. So that's why you bring lots of rope. You always tie your boat down. You never leave it alone, unattended, unless it's tied down. Canoes can easily float or blow away. I've seen it happen. I was once on a canoe trip with a large number of people. We had 4 boats, and we were camped on an island, and a storm was coming in. We could see it in the distance. So me and my buddy, we took our 2 boats and we stashed them in the forest, tied them down, while the other group decided to make a shelter with their 2 canoes. They propped them up sideways, put a tarp over them, and sat underneath the tarp to watch the storm blow in. So when the winds came, they caught those 2 boats on an angle and flung them right up into the air and into the lake. So we had to go find them the next morning. They floated away, and the next morning we found them and brought them back. The other thing that can happen is your boat can just float away. Often people will leave a boat half out of the water on a beach or something. Waves can come and grab that boat and float it away. And on a big lake, you can have a seiche effect. A seiche is when the water is unstable and it kind of sloshes back and forth in a big lake, like in a bathtub. What happens is a low pressure system or something will go over and push one end of the lake down, and that lake will bounce all day long, kind of like this. And it happens really slowly. I've seen it happen on Lake Superior, where the water's low, and then half an hour later, the water is 8 inches higher. Half hour after that, it goes back down again. So the water's just sloshing around like in a bathtub. So if a seiche catches your boat and it's not tied up, it's gonna float away. So it's not my style to tell people what to do in a video, but on this particular case, always tie your boat. So this is the other boat that we own. This is an 18.5 footer made by Souris River in Atikokan, Ontario, here in Northern Ontario. And it's a fantastic boat. We bought it for going on big, long family trips. And it's 18.5 feet. It's a monster. This boat is actually lighter than the boat on top of it. That's because they use Kevlar as well, but they don't put as thick a gel coat on the outside, and that really trims down the weight. The sides of the boat are very pliable, but it's a very strong boat. Really great boat. I like it a lot. Handles fantastic when it's loaded. We've easily had 800 pounds or more in this boat at one time. You know, kids, dogs, packs, you name it, we can go someplace in it. But the downside is that it doesn't handle so well when it's empty. It's so buoyant that it sits very high in the water, and any slight breeze will push it around. But for a good long heavy canoe trip, excellent boat. So life jackets. If you're into canoe tripping, you want the most comfortable life jacket you can afford. You'll notice this one has very narrow shoulder straps and lots of room for my arms. That means it's very comfortable. I've got lots of range of motion and I'm not too hot. If your life jacket isn't comfortable, you're going to find excuses not to wear it. And if you tip over your canoe when you're not wearing a life jacket, it's not going to help you out very much. So what else have I got here? Well, again, in order to be compliant, I've got a whistle. So that's a second whistle on the boat. This is the one I'd probably use. So the other thing on my life vest that folks noticed and commented on was this knife right here. I bought this a few years ago when we were doing a lot of canoe tripping with kids. The boat was full of kids and dogs and ropes, and the point of this knife is to rescue you if anyone ever goes over and gets tangled up in a rope. So it comes off really easily. It's got a serrated edge on one edge. The tip isn't sharp at all, and the back edge is not sharp. So it's just for cutting ropes in an emergency situation. So I've never had to use this, and you know, if I wasn't tripping with kids, I probably wouldn't have even bought it, but It's one of those things that you have and it makes you feel comfortable because you have it. And this particular life jacket has a spot designed just for this kind of a knife. So the last item that's usually loose in the canoe, not in a pack, is my maps and map case and compass. I waterproof all my maps anyways, so I'm not too worried about them getting wet, but it's nice to have a map case to organize them. So the other thing I have with me is a compass, a really good compass. This is a Silver Ranger. It is a mirrored compass, so I can get a very accurate shot, and it has a little screwdriver here and I can adjust the declination depending on where I am.
The first step in lifting your boat is to stand beside it with your feet spread wide, lift one edge, and rest the weight of the canoe on your thighs as you lift the center thwart. Let's watch that again. The canoe should just roll up onto your thighs as you lift the center thwart. You should be able to easily balance the boat on your thighs. Then you're going to drop one hand and put it flat on the side of the boat. Don't grab the gunnel. Then lift quickly and step under the boat. Once the boat is up, it should balance nicely and be easy to handle. And putting the boat down is the same procedure, but opposite direction. You're going to bring the boat down to your thighs and then finally rest it on the ground.
Hey Kev, did you forget to talk about how much you should bring on a trip?
Yeah, I think I forgot to shoot that footage. I'll go do that now. So if you have seen some of my backpacking videos, you know that more is less. The smaller the weight you carry, the better trip you're going to have. Canoe tripping is a little bit different. With a boat, you have glide, so you can fill it up with lots of stuff and still travel very efficiently. The thing I worry about is how many portages and how long are those portages going to be. So if you're on a big lake and you're just going to put in on that lake and spend your whole time on one lake, the sky's the limit. If your portage route is long, or if it has a name like Death March Portage, which I've done, then you probably want to bring your gear right down. Last trip I was on, I had a number of portages, but they were all relatively short. I think the longest was 600 meters, so, I still brought a fair amount of gear. But that's what you got to think about. How many and how long are the portages, and what are the conditions going to be?
Hey guys, thanks for watching.